Welcome to Doug In Exile. Dan Bongino has always been a man on fire. That's why we here in Exile stand with Dan Bongino. He comes out in defense of himself. But we've got a ton of news to show you today. We talked a lot about the Marjorie Taylor Greene fallout, so I'm going to go easy on that, but I'll do a little bit of a follow-up on it. But thanks for watching. Thanks for being a happy patriot, guys. America's doing great, not because of Marjorie Taylor Greene, but because of you, the patriot, and for me. Welcome to Doug In Exile. First up, we have Dan Bongino right here on Twitter saying this is over an article that came out in the Daily Mail that says Kash Patel hired deputy FBI director with no background check in an extraordinary vetting breach. So they're trying to throw shade at Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, which is nearly the Democrat media Daily Mail's full-time job. Dan Bongino writes, I'm sincerely sorry for wasting your time on a weekend with nonsensical media fairy tales, but I do realize the act of addressing this puts even more eyes on it. True. That's why I'm helping you guys put your eyes on it. However, I work for you all and the American citizenry on our nation's top national security issues, and I cannot allow false headlines like this to stand. Boy, did these guys cross the wrong guy. Dan Bongino's eyes are all getting, they get all big. Claiming I was hired with no background check is just a lie. It's a complete fabrication. I held a security clearance while protecting Democrat and Republican presidents for over 10 years. And all of the background check requirements for my current position as deputy director of the FBI has been met. Those are simple facts. Again, my apologies for wasting your time on this, but I work for you and you should know the facts. I'm honored to serve in the Trump administration alongside Director Kash Patel as your deputy director, and I will continue to hit the gas pedal on crushing violent crime and securing the homeland. God bless America and all those who defend her. Dan. Let me know in the chat below if you guys are thankful for Dan Bongino, which I thank God every day that he got that job. Now, next up, this is a little bit of bad news on, this is a rhino and an ever-Trumper, Andrew McCarthy, who is also a constitutional scholar who I really enjoy a lot. He says, expect the Comey and Tish James indictments to be dismissed without prejudice. That's his prediction. And I just wanted to give you guys an update. If it does happen, I want to have reported on this. The initial appointment of the prosecutor, that's that Lindsay Halligan, in these process was untenable, and Bondi's fix doesn't work. So I reported in the last video where we shredded Marjorie Taylor Greene live about Pam Bondi's fix. He explains why it doesn't work. In the end, there are just not a good answer for the question. I'm speaking of a question posed by Judge Cameron McGowan Curry on the government lawyers who are slated to try the Trump Justice Department's prosecutions of former FBI Director James Comey and incumbent New York Attorney General Letitia James. Those defendants have moved to dismiss the charges. Now, that's a bit of a problem. So I'm just warning to you guys that there was a little bit of a question of the legality of Lindsay Halligan being appointed by Pam Bondi after Trump fired the previous guy. They installed her. Pam Bondi didn't have great arguments. But the reason why I brought up that negative article is because Pam Bondi is doing Trump's work. Even if it's difficult to prosecute in a court, even if it's hard to defend, there was no time. She panics in, but she is a loyal MAGA person doing the best with her job, and I support that. Here's Todd Starnes with a warning. He says, many in Congress and the so-called conservative influencer crowd, because I'm calling out these other influencers today, overtaking Marjorie Taylor Greene's side against Trump. They claim to be MAGA, but they aren't. Their loyalty to President Trump was always self-serving and built on grift. And I've told you guys this, I lost subscribers over telling you the truth about Epstein, and other people made money, gained subscribers. I only have 600,000 subscribers. That's a lot, but I'd have 1 million. If I was willing to lie and just do it for clicks and make money, there you go. There's a lot of noise within the conservative movement right now, and there's a lot of ugliness and betrayal, but maybe everyone needs to take a step back for just a moment and remember that Donald J. Trump nearly sacrificed his life for the nation. This is why I'm on the MAGA side, on Team Trump. He gave his life. He doesn't have to prove his credibility with me by taking certain positions. Now, speaking of taking positions, Trump is going to destroy, bankrupt the BBC.
There are lots of people in Britain who are cheering President Trump on and who want him to sue the BBC because they're a huge problem. They've lied, they've cheated, they've fiddled with footage, both in the case of President Trump, but also covering up what's happening in Britain, whether it's mass migration, whether it's our economic problems. They are always biased towards the left, and the British taxpayer has had to pay for all of this fake news. So
it's just like us with PBS and the British people. There's patriots there. They don't have to be Americans to be patriots. And anti-globalism, anti-Marxism, anti-Islamic radicals stealing their daughters off the streets. They're patriots, just like us, but in another country. And they're tired of paying the BBC to lie to them.
There is a lot of excitement amongst conservatives in Britain at the moment that President Trump is actually taking the BBC on.
Do you think an apology from the BBC is enough?
Nope.
No, I don't, because they keep doing it again and again. They have painted a completely false picture of President Trump in Britain over a number of years. They've done the same thing about conservatives in our country.
And in saying Keir Starmer was at all tolerable, they told that lie too. They supported Keir Starmer, they opposed Trump.
And I believe the organization needs to be defunded. And as well as suing the BBC, I think it would be fantastic if President Trump were to encourage stopping the British taxpayer funding what is fake news that is damaging Britain's reputation. I mean, the BBC used to be the paragon of journalism across the world. It was respected. It's now become a laughing stock, and it needs to be put out of its misery.
And the BBC has apologized. The chairman, Samir Shah, has sent separately personal letter to the White House, making it clear to President Trump that he and the corporation are sorry for the edit of President's speech on 6th of January, 2021, which featured in the program. The BBC has no plans to rebroadcast the documentary.
Yeah, that's an admission of guilt. Get them, Trump. Break them, bankrupt them. And to the English people, my British people, my British patriots, never put an X. It might be next to Labour. And the Tories, they're not much better. They're total sellouts. But find someone who will represent you instead of these leftists. Now, a little bit of news on Marjorie Taylor Greene. You guys remember when I did the Nancy Pelosi insider trading thing, and I kind of hosted that webinar, DougsInsiders.com, where I put together this package with Ross, who's incredible, Ross Givens, and we follow their insider trading to try and get 100% returns on the stock market. But Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of the top grifters, so I thought this just came out today. This is Cynthia Holt, and I have talked about this, that she's made a lot of money on insider trading. Marjorie Taylor Greene's stock trades since 2021, this is just in a couple years, have turned $700,000 into $25 million. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that's not what my stock portfolio and my retirement looks like. She turned $700,000 into $25 million on a $174,000 salary. So here's all the top people making money off their stock purchases by Congress. There's Debbie Wasserman Schultz is the top one. Virginia Fox, Thomas Carper, Robert Williams. There's Marjorie Taylor Greene, number 5. So she gets a 38% return, one of the highest. You know, your average since the Great Depression, the average return on the stock market, if you just put your money in, is 11%. Marjorie Taylor Greene's beaten that 3 times with her insider trading. And then here's Mark Levin, who is a Jew who hates that Marjorie Taylor Greene is always dissing Israel and Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes. He's upset at these anti-Israel people. Donald Trump writes, Marjorie Traitor Greene, that's her new name, Marjorie Taylor Greene, is a disgrace to our great Republican Party. And Mark Levin, the great one, says, yes, she is. Now, I don't think Marjorie Taylor Greene is evil. I think she's wrong. I did a whole video on the last video is live. The first one we posted today, it's an hour and a half unpacking the entire Marjorie Taylor Greene war, including hearing from her, the counter, back and forth between her and Trump and the why. I don't need to waste more time on it here. I do want to give you a follow-up on Alina Habba, because we did that thing on the guy walked into her office with a baseball bat. She says, we got him. Why did we get him? Because here's Attorney General Pam Bondi, thanks to the great work of the FBI, U.S. Marshals, and HS1 FBI headquarters. The suspect one in the attack of Attorney Habba's office is now in custody, as she promised. No one will get away with threatening or intimidating our great U.S. attorneys or the destruction of their offices. Alina Habba, we got him. The Justice Department under Pam Bondi, only people lie to you who say she needs to be fired, and our federal partners will not tolerate any acts of intimidation or violence toward law enforcement. So grateful to the FBI, U.S. Marshals for their tireless work to capture him. Now justice will handle him. You guys can tell me in the chat below, what punishment do you think this guy with the baseball bat who walked into Alina Habba's office, Democrat, because they're all violent. All violence is well, not all Democrats are violent, but all violent people are Democrats. Here's Ed Martin, Department of Justice. Thank you, President of the United States. The Biden DOJ targeted Susan K. for social media posts. That's right. The Biden administration went after Susan K. for social media posts. And she was sentenced to 18 months in federal lockup. That's Joe Biden on free speech. That's all the Democrats. We would all be in lockup. They put her in for 18 months. President Trump is unwinding the damage done by Biden's DOJ weaponization so the healing can begin. This is an official, signed by Trump right here, presidential pardon. President of the United States of America, to all who shall come, be it known this day, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States, pursuant to my powers under the Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1 of the Constitution, have granted the individual named below a full unconditional pardon to Susan K. I wanted to end on that happy note to show you that Trump is bringing back free speech. He supports free speech. We support Trump. We are MAGA all the way. Marjorie Taylor Greene, your career is over. Love you, girl. Big fan, but your career is over. That's your choice, not mine. If you guys agree, Marjorie Taylor Greene needs to retire or jump on the MAGA bandwagon and get behind Trump again. Maybe he'll show some mercy on her. If you're happy that Pam Bondi helped catch the guy that walked into Alina Habba's office with a baseball bat, if you support Dan Bongino and do not support the mainstream media that lied and said he did not get a proper background check with Kash Patel, leave a comment in the chat below. Always subscribe. I'm Doug in Exile. More news to come.